I've always yearned to help others, to save the needy from suffering. You see, the world doesn't need imagined monsters. Plenty of real ones haunt humanity every day. Disease, poverty, oppression, all scarier than the demons in horror movies. Or so I thought. 7 years ago, the charity I worked for sent me to the Philippines to help a few villages prepare evacuation plans in case of flooding. The poverty was bad enough. The first village lay next to a dirty, trash-soaked river. The nipa houses rested on stilts that stood upon caked mud amid a sprawling jungle. 2 opposing tree stumps with perched buckets is how I described the basketball court. Despite this, the villagers exuded joy. During the afternoon siesta, men would gather on plastic tables and pass around coconut wine while playing cards or mahjong. And in the evening, they'd congregate in the village captain's house and sing 90s classics on the karaoke machine, sometimes until the roosters crowed. They got the nipa wood for the houses from mangroves that lined the river's edge like a wall of roots. As strong as the material was, a fierce flood could annihilate an entire nipa village in an hour. A successful evacuation requires an easy path to high ground. And so, from the comfort of my hotel suite in Cebu, I drew a route through the jungle and up the nearby mountain, which loomed over the village like a titan. Aside from that, I spent my time at the hotel phoning corporate social responsibility heads, usually while drinking whiskey in the bathtub. And after much cajoling, raised funds for rowboats, life vests, canned food, loudspeakers, and other essentials for surviving a flood. It was all going smoothly, until I drove back to the village and presented my plan. The village captain, whom everyone called grandmother because she was the eldest, had prepared a feast for me, which she had cooked in literal holes in the grass. "No one here is old enough," she said, while we were having lunch under billowing black clouds. But I remember what happened at that mountain. I loved eating on a banana leaf, but cupping the rice and meat with my hands still seemed so awkward. Good things, I hope. She hesitated, chewing her food slowly, then shook her head and said, "Aswang lived there." I didn't speak Tagalog, nor the local language of that region. I simply stared back, my eyebrows raised. "I'm sorry, what's an aswang?" The village captain told me a story. When she was a young girl, the village was located on the other side of the mountain, away from the river, and it was well off because the men worked at the mountain's tin mine and the price of tin was high. But strange things began happening. A few men who went to work in the mine didn't come out quite the same. Some of the wives, specifically the pregnant ones, would claim the creatures called aswang had taken their husbands' forms. They'd wake up in the night and see their husbands staring intently at their swollen bellies, slobber dripping from their mouths. I laughed in the village captain's face, thinking it's a joke. How rude and foolish I was. But I had 4 other villages to deal with during that trip. "I'm afraid there is no time to change the evacuation plan. Typhoon season is here after all." The village captain persisted. Because of those aswang, no baby was born in the village for a whole year. The mothers always disappeared before they could give birth. Only when the tin mine went bust and we relocated to this river did things return to normal. I understand your fears. I didn't. But it's the only high ground for miles. It even has caves for shelter, and it's an easy climb. There's simply no better place to save everyone's lives. The other villagers I talked to didn't share her concern, which reassured me because if they believed such a ridiculous tale, I'd be forced to find another site. I stayed overnight, intending to practice my evacuation plan with everyone in the morning before I moved on to the next village, which was on a different island. But we'd never get to practice it. At sunrise, the sky bellowed and opened. Wind screamed and howled, as if some mighty god were blowing upon the world and flinging coconut and papaya trees like twigs. The bulging river overflowed past the mangroves, and the stilts supporting the nipa huts weren't sturdy enough to keep the water from sucking them up. The world knows this catastrophe as Typhoon Haiyan, but they called it Typhoon Yolanda here. Over 6,000 people died. Another 1,700 went missing. One of them because of me. Though I earnestly wanted to help. When the floodwater surged with the wind scourge, I wished I were back at my comfy hotel suite. Still, I did my job. As soon as the storm began, I gathered the villagers at the basketball court. Then we marched along a dirt path, through the jungle and toward the mountain. I ensured the children, elderly and pregnant women among us walked in front, so they wouldn't lag behind. Because I'd scouted it a few days ago, I knew that the trek to and up the mountain would be straightforward. A winding path brought us high enough where we could wait out the storm. Watching the villagers huddle together amid the caverns, still cheerful enough despite the calamity, I finally felt I had done some good. As I passed around blankets, canned food, and life vests, I realized how much more fulfilling this was than phoning corporate hits while drinking whiskey in a tub. It all started to go wrong when a young man came up to the village captain and me. I'll never forget his pockmarked and narrow face and the way he waved his arm in panic, as if he were trying to block a basketball shot. The village captain translated his pleading. His wife went to relieve herself, and now she's missing. I pounced at another chance to help, to fulfill my heart's yearning, so I organized a search party. Amid apocalyptic rain, I and several other able men and women scouted the mountain. When we failed to find her together, we divided into groups of 2. And when that didn't work, we split up individually, each taking a life vest, flashlight, a blowhorn to alert each other in case of danger. I decided to descend and search around the mountain's base. After 30 minutes, trudging against the gale and through the mud, I discovered a white cave, within which was utter darkness. As I stared at the mouth, I heard a woman's whimper, followed by what I can only describe as a deep, throaty cough that lasted a few seconds too long. Or was it simply the wind, scathing the cave walls? I shouted. I considered using the blowhorn, but decided to confirm what it was before alerting others. I grabbed my flashlight and continued inside. A damp, fleshy smell shot into my nose. I called the woman's name. Pained whimpers sounded back. I hurried forwarding and stepped on something sharp that almost split my shoe. I pointed my flashlight at it. A broken cart track? I had entered a mine. Around me, I saw wheelbarrows of ore covered in pounds of dust. A tin mine. Immediately, I recalled the story of the Aswang that impersonated the miners. A tightness gripped my chest. I didn't believe in imagined monsters, but who knows what could have been waiting in the darkness ahead. I wanted to turn and run, but pushed on, reminding myself why I was here. To save people. The whimpering was just ahead. I wished I could snap my fingers and teleport back to the hotel, where I could hide underneath the silky duvet on the Super King bed. How cozy it would be to wait out the storm there. My heartbeat surged as I squeezed my flashlight to settle the trembles. I stepped onward and shined my light forward. A pregnant woman lay writhing on the floor. Above her stood the same pockmark-faced man who'd been waving his arm earlier. He hunched over her, his mouth widened and slobber dripped from it. "Hello?" I said. "Glad you found her. Is she alright?" He ignored me. His mouth stretched beyond what was humanly possible, while emitting a throaty wail. And then, a hand slithered out of his mouth. The arm the hand was attached to had 3 elbows, and they bent at odd angles as it stretched toward his wife's ripe belly. I pulled out my blowhorn and pressed. It blared like the trumpet of Judgment Day, echoing against the cave walls. The thing snapped its head toward me. The hand coming out of its mouth contorted with bony snaps until all 3 elbows straightened. It grabbed at my face, just missing as I backed away and turned. I'd said I always wanted to help people. But in that moment, as my heart quavered and panic engulfed every sense, I only wanted to help myself. I ran until I was out of the cave and breathless. Back amid the deluge, instead of climbing up the mountain, I sprinted through the jungle toward the village, which was nearly submerged and drifting with the tide. Water reached my waist, but I still trudged through, my life vest keeping me from drowning. And then, the current swept me. It carried me through a thicket of downed trees, washed away nipa huts and plastic. Though terrifying, this was heaven compared to facing the creature in that cave. Half an hour later, some brave volunteers in a paddle boat rescued me. I told them I was running from an aswang, but they laughed, thinking me some crazy foreigner. I spent a few days in the shelter, then returned to Cebu, resigned from the charity, and once the storm had passed, took the first flight home. A while later, I heard from a colleague that the villager survived, save for one pregnant woman who'd gone missing. I've had 7 years to think about it since then, but my conclusion never changes. By ignoring the village captain's warning and guiding them to that cursed mountain, I caused something unmentionable to happen to that woman and her unborn child. I'd done exactly the opposite of what I yearned to do. I'd hurt instead of helped, because of my arrogance. The guilt still eats me. I don't dare to try to help anyone anymore. I'm a corporate drone now, slaving every day to make someone else rich. Better than hurting others with my good intentions.